where if the playoffs don't go well for these teams, this may be the last iteration of some sort, whether it's with the coaching or some of the bigger name players on those teams. The Bills more so than the Cowboys, I feel like. Welcome back to the What's to Play podcast. It is your boy Christian back. And it's season 3, guys. And I got the guys here with me. Nate, JB, Caleb, Brian. And we're back with another edition of the What's to Play podcast. It may have been a while since our face, but we are here, ready for the NFL playoffs. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Guys, we got a birthday this week. One of our podcast members is turning big 24. Big 24. So be sure to see at least 24 likes in the 24 likes, 24 comments, and I don't have the analytics on the shares, but 24 shares as well, somehow, some way. So make sure you're doing that for our boy. I don't know if the birthday boy wants to say whose birthday it is, but one of these gentlemen is turning 24 this week.
You could have just said it. I don't know.
That'll be really special.
I don't know why you're making me say it. You should be the one to say it. Like, I gotta speak up.
Nate's birthday coming up, y'all. Nate's birthday coming up. Big 2-4. Clap it up for Nate. Yes, sir. We might have to expedite this and drop it on his birthday for his birthday. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Unless you guys got something else to say, Caleb, to you, man.
Super Wildcard weekend is this weekend. We have some really, really good matchups this weekend, including the Packers going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. You got the Buccaneers hosting the Eagles, the spiraling Eagles. And also Matthew Stafford returned to Detroit. The Rams face the Lions this weekend as well. As you know, the 49ers do have a bye. AFC, the Ravens have a bye. But the Bills host the Steelers. Dolphins go to Kansas City, Arrowhead. What is it? Heifer? I forgot what it's called. They also got the Browns going down to Houston to play the offensive rookie of the year, or potential offensive rookie of the year, and CJ Stroud. Has anybody got any favorite matchups or any upsets y'all think is gonna happen this weekend?
I would say my favorite matchup, or the matchup I'm looking forward to most, is probably either the Rams and Lions, with Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit for the first time. I just think that's an interesting storyline. That the script, they couldn't have set this up any better, honestly. His first return being in the playoffs against the quarterback that a lot of people thought was probably done in this league, and Jared Goff. For him to still be the quarterback in Detroit, what is this, 3 years after this trade happened, and they got a better seed than the Rams, that's pretty impressive for him. So I'm pretty intrigued in that storyline. And then the Dolphins versus the Chiefs, I think this will probably be one of the better games of the weekend. Hopefully, the Chiefs, they haven't looked right all season, but it's playoff time. Maybe this is the time they get right. And then the Dolphins, they've been struggling recently. They've had a lot of big-name players go down. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. I think Xavier Howard also got hurt. So these are two teams who are both struggling. They're both kind of like backing into the playoffs almost, because they had a good start to the season, but they've struggled as of late. So I'm interested to see how that matchup goes. But it's Patrick Mahomes versus the Dolphins, and you got to see how Tua responds to this playoff environment once again, because I don't believe he played in the playoffs last year due to the injury. So this is just something I'm interested in looking at. The other matchups, Packers versus Cowboys. Anytime the Cowboys are in the playoffs, it's entertaining, just because it's just so many people rooting against them so often. What can go wrong will go wrong with the Cowboys for most of the time that we've seen. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the year that they can get over the hump. This is one of the best teams, one of the best situations they've been in recent memory. The only team that you could say in the NFC who is head and shoulders above them is the 49ers. And even then, you could see a world where the Cowboys can get the best of them in a matchup. So it'll be interesting to see if the Cowboys can put it together this year. Is this their year? I guess we'll just have to find out. But the Packers, Jordan Love has been balling. So this is if he's the one to take the Cowboys out, it'll be a great storyline as well. So it's a lot of storylines. Flacco maybe going back to Baltimore if he win this week, man. I hope you're worried.
I'm scared. I'm scared for that game. I'm scared for Joe Flacco to come to Baltimore again, man, because the Browns have been balling. We lost to them earlier when they had Deshaun at that. So with Joe Flacco, who's playing actually better. But I feel like we on the road right now. But we talk about it when it happens. when it really gets to there. But I'm piggyback right off of you. I think the most exciting matchup as well as the Dolphins and Chiefs. Not because the Dolphins has a high flying offense, even though they've been kind of on and off past few weeks. Both teams have their woes. Like you said, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, they both out, so they virtually have no pass rushers. I think they just signed Justin Houston, who had a good season with Baltimore last year. But to see Justin Houston on this team, we'll see how it kind of see if it helps the Dolphins at all at any point of the game, because we all know Chiefs right now have not the best tackles, have some tackles issue right now. So we see how that goes for sure. But the matchup I'm excited for the most is honestly the Packers and Cowboys. I'm scared for it because I know it could potentially be a blowout because the Cowboys are playing really, really good all season. But I feel like how the way Jordan Love been playing right now, and hopefully Joe Barry gets himself. Even though Joe Barry had a good last game, if he gets his defense together, I feel like that probably will be the best matchup in my opinion. Of the weekend, but potentially, I think that has the biggest boom potential in my opinion when it comes to the game itself.
Hey,
But
I agree. I agree.
they let Jair travel. It might be a real interesting matchup. I
they're
don't
gonna let
know
him
if they
travel.
will though, because
He,
CD
Would
gets
he be
a
in
lot
the
of work in
slot
the
though?
slot. I mean,
mm,
CD plays outside, but he gets a lot of work in the slot.
he
But
does.
I'm hoping that Jair travels just because I don't think anybody else in that secondary really can do anything with him. If they go heavy zone, he'll eat them alive. So if he gets that man to man matchup, I'd be interested.
Yeah. But what about you, Brian? Got anything you're excited for? Any matchups that
So
may
for
be
me,
potential upset?
kind of like y'all said, I think the one that I'm most excited to see would be Chiefs and Dolphins, because obviously we saw this matchup earlier, and it still has a little bit of a revenge factor, especially with Tyreek formerly being a Chief. Hopefully, Jalen Waddle will be able to play in that game. If not, it may get a little hectic for Tua and company in the passing game. But and also, it's a situation for the Chiefs to kind of get back on the path of redeeming their season, I guess you would say. Since this is basically not the Arrowhead Invitational, as Nick Wright would put it. And then the other game is, like Christian said, the Rams and the Lions. The script writers did their thing with that one, making sure we got that for the first week. So those are the two games I'm looking forward to for sure.
Okay, JB, you got any games that you looking forward to at all?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be Rams and Lions. I like that they both have sort of mid-level quarterbacks, strong RBs, and a standout wide receiver. So it'd be exciting no matter what. I think the backdrop in the story gives it more life too. So if I had to pick one, that'd be the one I mainly want to watch. Um, but I did have a question for Caleb. Um, Between Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson, which Ravens QB is like the most beloved in the fan base? Because if Joe Flacco comes back to M&T, like, who they really like on for? Of course, they're Ravens
Who's
fans, so I'm not dumb, but you know what I'm saying.
I would say more beloved at this point in time. It's hard. It's really hard to say. Just
Mm-hmm.
because how Lamar, just type of person, type of character Lamar has shown he is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, especially off the field, he's a very, very humble guy. That just kind of show how the organization moves. But I would say definitely Joe Flacco's probably more beloved at this point, just because he was the quarterback who brought the ring to the city, to the team
Mm-hmm.
itself. But Lamar Jackson is going to take that pretty soon. Take that away
Okay.
pretty soon.
Okay.
Just because he's potentially about to be 2-time MVP.
Right.
He gives back to the cities always. He loves the city. City loves him. And he's a very, very historic player. We haven't seen many players like him at all. And having that franchise and him to be the type person he is off the field, it's probably gonna be Lamar soon. But I would say Joe right at this point in time, though, for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is one of the few situations where one of the team's probably best quarterback in history up to this point, um, ends up leaving, and it's pretty amicable. It's not like it's on bad terms, but he ends up going to one of their division rivals. So I'm interested. I think it would be very difficult for Baltimore fans to just outright boo Joe Flacco when he comes out that
Yeah.
tunnel.
Right.
But
He will
you're
get the biggest round of applause. Like, he's gonna get like
Oh,
probably the
yeah.
biggest ovation when he come
yeah.
out.
So I'd be interested to see if this matchup actually happens. Cleveland
I
still
pray
has
it
to take care
doesn't.
of first. Still got to take care of business with Cleveland first. I mean, Yeah, with Houston first. So I don't want them to overlook that young boy down in Houston, C.J. Stroud, because he can win a game by himself. Him and Nico Collins have been doing their thing all year. But Cleveland has arguably the best defense in football, if not second behind the Ravens. So I hope this is the matchup that happens, but you never know. But Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, two back-to-back great quarterbacks in their history. It'll be interesting to see them go head-to-head. And they were in the same locker room at some point. So it's, Lamar was actively learning from Joe in his first year there. So hopefully it's all good. Everything's on good terms, just nice competitive game.
Real
Also,
dirt
in order for
Luka
us to
type
get
shit.
that matchup, we got to make sure Miami doesn't upset Kansas City.
Yes. Miami or Pittsburgh might do the impossible without TJ Watt. I doubt it, but you never know.
But speaking of the Steelers, so us as the collective WTP, each of us have put together our own list ranking the playoff teams right now. As you know,
Hold on.
what's up?
Go ahead, JB.
Does Nate have a game he's looking forward to?
Huh?
Does Nathan have a game he's
Oh, yeah,
looking forward
Nate
to?
got to give his game.
Oh, my bad, my bad, killer. My bad, killer.
Going good. I was gonna say initially Dolphins and Chiefs, but I don't got Peacock. That game not on cable, so
Dream
probably the Rams and the Lions, just for like what, first time in how many 30 years? Lions in the playoffs. Storylines there, right? It's been about 30, right?
First time they won since they won the playoff game.
No, since they won, I lied. Okay,
This is their
30
first
years
time
since they won.
hosting in full field, though.
Yeah.
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 So it's hard.
That may be that probably is the best story this whole weekend, in my opinion. When it comes to the team, to the games this weekend. But
in bad because Matt Stafford might come in there and do that thing, man.
Tear them up, goodness.
I don't know. I like the Rams, man. I had them pretty high on. Oh wait, I think you about to introduce that.
You did sneak peek, but we're gonna start off though with ranking. All of us had our own list ranking the 14 playoff teams. As you know, a few years ago, they made it from 6 to 7 teams, added an extra wild card spot. Something I'm honestly still getting used to. But we can start off with number 14. So we can start with Demarco. Demarco, who's your 14 team in the playoffs right now? 14 best team.
Oh, snap. I didn't expect to go first. Hold on. I got to
We all have
We
the
all had
same
the same
team.
team.
Yeah, same team.
My first 3 teams were
14.
You start with 14.
No, number 14.
14.
The lowest team.
Last
I started 14 all the way up.
No.
Yeah.
Starting
I
at
got
14, then we're going to 14.
Yeah, 14 I got Steelers. We all got the same team.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Yeah, we all had the Steelers. I feel like it's not too much to talk about with them.
You know, on the spot like that.
Yeah, you
TJ Watt is out. It was MCL sprain, something like that.
I believe
he's
so.
out. He's officially ruled out for that game. Even though it's Mike Tomlin, the defense always going to try to do their best to slow down the other team. And also, they are playing Josh Allen. So you never know you can be Josh Allen. He's been on the tear for the past week or two, but even though he played bad at some points in those games as well, though. But yeah, we all got the Steelers. There's not much to say about that team. Their quarterback is Mason Rudolph, so that says a lot.
It's been
However,
said
though,
that I have. Sorry.
no, go ahead, Killer. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's been said to have a Josh Allen mindset. Throw that in here too. I don't know.
Who told you that?
Spreading around. Forgot. Somebody said that though. I was like, Halo said that.
Who?
Halo
I said that?
I think you said that. You was at the gym. The game came on or highlights. You said you remind me of Josh Allen. I said, oh, thanks.
That's not a compliment. It's not a compliment.
Yeah, it's not a compliment. Not a compliment.
It's not a compliment.
But I am a Josh Allen hater, so probably not
How's it
the
not a
first
compliment?
stats.
Nah, that's OC, not a compliment. Saying somebody acts like Josh Allen.
Retail.
He's saying like you. What's the best way of saying this?
Josh Allen's probably one of the.
Meathead.
Yeah.
Nah, like you know how
Yeah.
like CT, yeah, like one of those moments, some dumb moments.
Real
But, like,
real
more
same type
consistently.
mix, though.
Yeah.
Okay. I can jive with that. That's cool though. He get a job done at the end of the day. I'm saying he still throw them motherfuckers, but it is what it is.
He ain't got the job done yet.
No, it's definitely ain't done yet.
Fair enough.
All right, so
Ball
we're
is a
gonna go
goal.
to You said what?
13. I was saying Super
Yeah,
Bowl is the goal.
it is. But now we move on to 13. So majority of us had the same team at 13, which was Buccaneers, me, DeMarco, and Christian. However, though, JG, his 13 team was the Eagles, but
Mm.
Brian, his 13 team was the Packers. So Brian, explain why you had the Packers at 13.
Okay, so when it came to my rankings, I tried to base it more off like the ceiling that I saw for certain teams. So that's why mine's may be a little bit more different than most. So for the Packers, even though I think Jordan loves a good quarterback, he's a quarterback of the future, and he's a guy that could become a franchise guy one day. I don't know if I have them beating Dallas, and I feel like between them and the next team on my list, I feel like that next team is more likely to win their game this week than they are. I felt like I needed to put them at 13 for that reason.
So you kind of base it on the essentially probability who's going to win the game.
To a degree.
Because say
To
you
a degree.
flip it, right? Say you flip the Packers and Bucks, right? Would it be like, who have a better chance to win those games? That makes sense.
Say it again.
So
I'm
I
say
think
sorry.
that's
Bucks playing. So say Bucks playing Cowboys, right?
Mm.
And Packers playing Eagles. Would it be kind of the same thing though? So we have flipped them rather than that makes sense. Rather than just
yeah,
keep
that
it the
makes
same way
sense.
it
I
is.
see what you're saying. Uh,
I think he's just doing based off if you were to go week to week, who he would pick to win one game. And so I
Yeah.
guess since this is who they're playing, this is how you would rank them. I kind of did it the same way you did though, Caleb, by just looking at who I would feel is the better team. Like these two teams were to play, who I think would win. But the Packers and Buccaneers are really right there with
yeah.
me. I mean, for me, only reason I had the Packers at 12 and the Buccaneers at 13 is because Baker looks like he's been hurt over the past couple weeks. Hasn't looked great the past couple weeks. He only put up, I know it was a weather game in Carolina, but he only put up 9 points against the Panthers. The offense looks like they're kind of backing up into the playoffs. There's another one of those teams who've kind of been struggling. They lost last week. They're lucky that they played the Panthers this past week because I don't know if they beat any other team in the league other than the Panthers or the Commanders. Based on how they played, the defense showed up, but again, it's the Panthers. The offense did not show up against the Panthers, so that's a bit worrying for me. So that's why I had them at 13. The Packers, they're just a young team, like Brian said. Defense has been inconsistent all year with not many weapons on the outside to make plays. Well, big name weapons. They have almost a new receiver show up every week who you've never heard of. I think 2 weeks ago, Bo Melton had a 100-yard game. Dontavian Wick's been pretty consistent, 60-yard guy. Christian Watson may be back. Did they activate him?
I
Anybody
don't think
know?
they have. I don't think they did.
So if he's not back, then they have no big names on the outside other than Dobbs. And then all their attention is focused on Dobbs. One of them young guys got to make some plays, and they've been doing it. Jordan Love has been finding them in the right situations, but if he can limit his turnovers against his team, then maybe they have a chance. But if he turns that ball over like more than once, it might get ugly in Dallas.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
these two teams are probably right next. They're very similar in sort of their timeline. At least for the Buccaneers offense in comparison to like the Packers defense, I would consider Buccaneers to have a pretty young offense outside of Mike Evans. And then the Packers defense, we all know, is just young with a bunch of guys who make mistakes, but they're young, so you kind of expect it with a bad defensive coordinator, though. Joe
Yeah.
Barry, I don't know if he'll be in a job. They win this week, though. It'll be hard to get rid of the defensive coordinator who went into Dallas and won a game, so you never know.
Yeah, can't get mad at that. I feel like I have an outlier team at 12 for the Texans. So 12, Brian had the Bucks. I had the Texans. Christian, he had the Packers. Demarco had the Packers as well. I feel like I'm the outlier with the Texans. To me, I just kind of brought it down to comparing the quarterback play. Honestly, CJ Stroud has been balling out, but at the same time, this man Jordan Love has put up how many like 34 touchdowns?
Yeah, something like that.
I think it
30
was 30.
plus.
I think it
30
was 30.
plus
Yeah,
first year.
30 plus touchdowns in the season. With the receivers that you can't that the casual or the average football watcher wouldn't know most likely. When it comes to Dobbs and Reed. Even Hicks, right? His last name Hicks, correct? I believe
Who?
the third receiver.
Wicks, Dontavian.
Wicks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wicks. I said Hicks. Wicks. But I just kind of compare it to quarterback play. I think Jordan Love has a better chance, and especially with the defense with the Packers. Even though Joe Barry's a terrible defensive coordinator, well, it's not terrible, but a kind of inconsistent defensive coordinator. They still have Jay Alexander. They still have Kenny Clark. They still have players on the defense who could still ball out. And Texas are a very, very young team. Even though Packers' offense is very young, I think their defense could do a lot, especially with the way Jordan Love has been playing recently. So at this moment, I have the Packers over the Texans. And once again, I know it's a chance the Packers may probably will get blown out. But at the same time, I feel like the Packers could definitely make this a competitive game because there's something about the Packers when it comes to the Cowboys, man. Something about the
That's an
Packers,
interesting
bro.
take. Having the Packers having a better chance than the Texans. I mean, I could see it. I mean, I don't think either game is necessarily going to be a blowout. Just as long as the Packers show up, I think they'll have a good game. But I definitely think the Texans would have a better chance in a home game against Cleveland. Just because you never know. Maybe Joe Flacco's magic just runs out, you know? If that's the case, I think Houston rolls them. Because I don't think Cleveland stands a chance if the offense doesn't put up points. Because as good as Cleveland's defense is, I still think Houston's going to end up putting up points. Cleveland's been great at getting sacks and turnovers all year. CJ Stroud has been pretty good at avoiding pressure and avoiding turnovers all year. So it's kind of a matchup of one of his strengths versus the defense's strength. And I'd just be interested. Hopefully, Myles Garrett, doesn't get after him too much. And if he has time in that pocket, he'll be able to make something happen. But rookie quarterback, first playoff game, I can understand that there may be concern for what he may be able to actually do on the field. But two similar teams there as well, I can say.
Okay. So I would move on to the next one. Number 11.
Yeah, let's
So
keep going.
Brian.
I mean,
Well, we
11.
just did
My
12.
bad. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, we're on 11.
11, Texas,
So
Packers, Texans, Packers, same teams around this area.
yeah, anybody's
Then
going
go
to
to
say about the Packers and Texans? Anything else? All right, cool. So move on to the top 10. So 10, we have 3 Eagles. So I chose the Eagles. Christian and Demarco chose the Eagles. Christian or Demarco, y'all anything to say about the Eagles? So why you guys put them at 10?
This was
The
tough
bottom
for
5
me.
team.
This was tough because you see, Brian has the Eagles at 8. SportsFan has the Eagles at 13. So it's like, based off how they've been playing so far, SportsFan's probably closer to the actual answer of where they're supposed to be. But based off their potential and what we've seen in the past over the first 10 weeks of the season and last season, Brian's probably closer to the truth. So it's like 10 is like that sweet spot for me. I still have them above the team that they're playing. So it's like if the Eagles win one playoff game, it'll be very hard to pick against them for the remainder of the playoffs, in my opinion. Because if they get any semblance of momentum, I think that's what's holding them back right now. They don't have any momentum going into the playoffs. But if they can win a playoff game on the road, they probably have to go against the 49ers next week. But I mean that still may be a decent matchup for them. It'll be hard to say that they're the overwhelming underdog if they can get that one playoff win under their belt. They may start rolling. So that's really why I had them above like team like the Texans, Packers, because I do think they're going to beat the Buccaneers. It may be a close game, it may not be, but if they get that one playoff win under their belt, there's the type of veteran team that can just get going at the right time.
Yeah, same twin.
Yeah, I essentially just explained everything I kind of wanted to get out. I feel like the Eagles, like the list shows it. I feel like their potential is really, really high. But Brian has them at 8, and the lowest we have on the list is 13. And I feel like the Eagles themselves, just the recent play has not been good at all. Hasn't been that good. They were 1-5, I believe, last 6 games. And it's just, but like you said, they have the talent. And they've shown it before with a similar roster. It's pretty much the same roster last year. When they get rolling, they rolling. They just probably just like you said, get that one win, and they could just make a Super Bowl one probably. We'll see. I'm not saying it's likely, but point is though they have the potential. They're one of the teams that potential to do that. So yeah, yep. However, though, Brian and JG, they had the same team at 10, which is the Rams. So why you had the Rams at 10? Right at the brink of top 10?
So
This hurt me, man.
So like
This
Chris
hurt
said,
me.
this was a tough idea, obviously, and it was based on potential to me. But my ceiling for the Eagles, because of the track record they have, even though they will require some help in order to get there, I would say is conference championship. Whereas for the Rams, it would be the divisional round, because I think, let's say that if Philly and the Rams both won this week, Philly would have to go play. Philly would have to go play Dallas, while the Rams would have to go to play San Francisco. So I could see the Eagles beating Dallas more likely than the Rams beating San Francisco. Now, as Caleb said earlier, if it's a situation where both of them are playing San Francisco, I think, because, as Christian's point, to the momentum point, it probably would favor the Rams a little bit more, especially since this is the third time you're facing the team. So I could see where you could obviously flip flop and have the Rams over the Eagles, but I just think I think the Eagles would have a better chance theoretically than the Rams to get to the conference championship, because because the Rams would have to get through San Fran, whereas the Eagles might be able to avoid them if Matthew Stafford walks into Detroit, as CT alluded to earlier.
I think looking at JG's list, he kind of, I think he did his list similar to you, Brian, because basically all of the matchups that are going on, they're basically on opposite ends of the list, except for Buccaneers Eagles. So he just down on both teams for the most part. But the matchups are on opposite sides of the spectrum. Like the Lions, he has at 5, and then the Rams he has at 10. So, and then the Cowboys at 4, and then who the Cowboys play? The Packers at 12. So he has the matchups are opposite ends of the spectrum. So I think he's kind of doing the same thing you are. Um, but I can't be mad at the Rams at 10. I have them way higher than I think everybody else. But I think going into any matchup, and you can call me crazy, but going into any matchup, I think they have A, either the best player on the field, or B, the best coach on the sidelines. Aaron Donald, best player in the NFL for the last decade, you could say. Maybe slowing down a bit. What do you say?
For real?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that's debatable. He's
been-
he's probably the
I
best
don't know how to
defensive
judge.
player of our generation. It's between him and JJ.
I'm not a judge
So.
NFL players. That's what I'm saying. I'd be
Yeah,
surprised.
so
No, that's
I mean,
that's
he may
fine,
be
JB.
slowing,
But yeah,
maybe slowing down a bit, but I do think he's going to turn it up in the playoffs, and you can kind of see that in my player ranking list once we get to that. But if he's on the field with the 49ers, McCaffrey may have an argument of being the best player on the field. But at that point, I think McVay's a better coach than Kyle Shanahan, especially once you get down to game management, maintaining the run. I think Sean McVay has done a great job of running the ball this year, maintaining the run. Even when they're down in games, he sticks with that running game. We've seen Kyle Shanahan in years past just forget about running the football. They played the Ravens. They got blown out. McCaffrey only had 10 carries, and the game wasn't really out of hand until the third quarter. So just that one element of their game, they're very similar play callers. They come from the same tree. So the offense is pretty similar. The Rams have the better quarterback, I could say. And so that's just why I would put the Rams, not the Rams, McVay is a better coach than Kyle Shanahan, because Kyle Shanahan relies a lot on his scheme and hoping that his scheme bails him out of a lot of situations. I think McVay has the same scheme, is a better play caller, I could say, and has the proven success to show that what he's done has worked. He's been in 2 Super Bowls, has won 1. So I don't know if there's much of an argument for Kyle Shanahan over McVay. And then they got Aaron Donald, who I think once playoff comes around, especially if they win this first round, it might be scary what he does. Might be scary. So honestly, if they win this week, I may shock the world and pick them next week against the 49ers. I don't know. But
that's not
like
too
the Rams.
crazy. It's not too crazy.
And they got an outside
I'm with you,
receiver now.
CT. If they keep it close.
They got a real outside receiver now. I don't know, man.
Hold on.
And our fullback is their number 1 anymore.
Hey,
Wait a
fullback
minute.
not their number one receiver no more, man. He don't even be getting the ball like that.
We have the Rams between 9 and 10. You said they win their first game, they could beat the 49ers. So we all have at 3, at
Look who I
third.
have it. Look who I have at 5.
But I say Christians is different than ours.
Yeah, question's different. So
Oh!
yeah.
You're right.
So yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
No,
okay.
I still think the 49ers will be
Okay.
favored, but this is just simply because the 49ers have a bye week. The Rams still have a game to play against a very good team in Detroit. In the playoffs, all about momentum. If the Rams get rolling, this
They
coach,
can
this
roll.
defense, this quarterback, they get rolling. If we re-rank these teams next week with who's still in it and they're still in it, I think a lot of people may have them much higher than they would right now.
Yeah.
Caleb
Yeah.
and I are familiar with those kind of runs.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I was thinking about having the Rams over the teams I have above them, especially the Dolphins and Browns. However, though, I just kind of did a head-to-head thing once again. I feel like if I see these teams play each other, I had the Rams. Not say losing all of them, well, losing against these teams. But however, though, I think the Rams have potential to roll just because of the players they have and the coach. I feel like you have even though the defense is lacking some talent. They have some players, but they lack some talent. But they have the best player in the world on defense. But like I said, it's really just more of the talent on defense. However, though with Sean McVay, Kyron Williams being a weapon, Cooper Cup, Puka being sensational this year, and Matthew Stafford is always a quarterback you can kind of follow. You know what I'm saying? He's a great quarterback. Probably I would say about what I think. In my opinion, he probably a top 7, top 5, top 7 quarterback league right now. In my opinion.
Based
Just
off
based
how
on how
quarterbacks played this year, he probably is top 7.
yeah. So
Based off
Who?
Matt Stafford.
Matthew Stafford and like if you look at this roster, this Rams roster beginning of the season, you would think they'd be at the point where they're at right now, 9-7. You would think they kind of will bottom out a little bit, or at least kind of be kind of mid. But they gave a lot of teams some good bump, especially the best team in the league right now, lost by a punt return, by overtime to the Ravens. So, but as I have the Rams at 9, should be because I don't see the teams
They
above them
gave the
again.
Ravens more bump than the 49ers did. Come on, nah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a real
wicked.
team right here, man. I'd be scared to play them. I don't think anybody in the playoffs wants to play Sean McVay.
I think they're most scared. I think they probably the scariest team to play.
And they're
Yeah, I think
battle
these wild
tested,
cards.
so they know what it takes to
I
win a
don't
Super
think.
Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to play these teams. And Cooper Cup, he probably turned it around once the playoffs start too. He's been pretty decent on the last couple weeks.
Don't say nothing about him, man.
Hey, he was hooping. He was hooping on my team. Got him off the team real quick too. But
So
I think these teams like 3, other than the top 2, 3 through 10. I'm not gonna say you can rank them any type of way, but there's a lot of variability that you can see between these teams because there's a lot of parity in this league this year. Like the Chiefs aren't dominant, the Bills aren't dominant. The Bills snuck into that 2 seed. That was the craziest. They went from potentially out of the playoff to 2 seed in like 5 hours. And then other than the 49ers and Ravens, nobody has been truly dominant to the point where you would just put all your money on them winning a playoff game.
yeah,
But we can move on to what's next, 9.
Yeah,
nah. So we talked about the Rams already, which me and Demarco had. But I'm Brian just gonna talk about the Browns. He had them at 9, lower than everybody else. But I understand that defense has been balling out like crazy. Joe Flacco is turning into elite Flacco once again. And they just kind of be on a great run after Deshaun Watson getting hurt. Even though they haven't played the best, but after Deshaun Watson got hurt, they ran through a DTR. Did any other quarterbacks can't think of right now. But point is, Joe Flacco came in balling out. But
PJ.
Brian, what is
Oh
your
yeah,
perspective?
PJ.
Yeah, PJ Walker. Yeah. But Brian, what is your perspective on having the Browns at 9? Why you put them at 9?
So I had the Browns this low because I believe in their defense for sure. Their defense is championship caliber, as I said on one of the Brian Deductions episode a while back. And I understand that Joe Flacco could continue to have this magical ride, but I think they're only, I don't want to say winnable, but the only game I can see them winning is against Houston. So after that, it's kind of like that's where I have them at. So at that point, that's as far as I think they would go. And I feel like the other teams that I have ahead of them in the AFC have a have a better ceiling, as I've been saying before.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I believe JG had the Texans at 9. Christian had the Dolphins at 9 as well, which I had at 8. Um, um, Christian, you
Hey,
want to
I'm gonna
explain?
show up for a good two slander session. I got
We
the
had him
Dolphins.
at
I
yeah.
got the Dolphins at 9. I don't doubt that they can go into Arrowhead and win the game. I would be a little bit surprised though, simply because I do not think that they have the quarterback to succeed in a playoff environment, especially once the weather gets a little chilly. And Mike McDaniel is not the most committed to the run type of play caller. So if he's relying on that pass, Tua's not getting the job done. Tua's having to make reads. We've seen it over the past few weeks. This quarterback is not who a lot of people thought he was at the beginning of the season. Once you take that first read away, it gets a little crazy. So I have them at 9, and I could literally see them. I have the Chiefs at 7. You guys know I'm the Chiefs' biggest supporter on here, but 9 and 7, you could see either one of those teams winning. But once it gets to that next round, I don't see them beating anybody. Honestly, I don't think they match up well with any of the remaining teams in the playoffs, unless the Steelers somehow sneak by. But they won't even face the Steelers until like the conference championship. So I don't think they match up well with anybody because all these other teams have either good offenses or great defenses. And the Chiefs is probably their best matchup in this playoff. I'm looking at these teams above them. I don't like their matchup with if they were to end up playing the Browns somehow. The Ravens, we already saw that. The Bills,
We've seen them
no. I think
twice.
Josh Allen probably played his worst game against them already. So if they were to see them again, I think Josh Allen would tighten up even more. But I don't like their matchup with any of these teams really. So I have them at 9. So I think using Brian's like whole ceiling thing, that's kind of how I rated the Dolphins. I
Mhm.
just don't think they have a high playoff team. They're dealing with a lot of injuries to that defense as well. The 2 edge rushers are out. Xavier Howard, I don't know if he's playing or not. And then offense, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle has an injury. Raheem Mostert has an injury. They're just having all these injuries back to back to back. And I don't think Tua is the type of quarterback who can rise above this rise above this situation.
Yeah, I hear you. That's why
Yes.
that's the same type of reason I had the Dolphins at 8. I don't see
Yeah.
their potential kind of get too high. I don't trust Tua in these big games. We see what he did on that last play against the Bills. And they was up 14-7, right?
Yeah.
14-7. They couldn't do it. He couldn't do nothing pretty much that whole game essentially.
That
So
last interception was an awful
it was
throw.
terrible.
That
It
was
was
one of
terrible.
the worst throws I've seen all season.
Yeah, it's been
Double
pretty
coverage, and he didn't give the receiver a chance. Like, oh
yeah.
my God. Chase
So
Claypool.
that's
What a rating.
yeah, that was terrible. Chase Claypool in that moment is
So
crazy.
who's next? 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
8.
Hey,
We
we
talked
also talk
about
about
these
the
teams,
teams
right?
though. So they got
So 7.
Brian.
I want to hear why Brian has the Dolphins at 7. Brian and JB have the
The Dolphins at 7
what's
is what we're
the
talking about.
Let's talk about it,
yeah.
Brian. Let's talk about it.
Okay. So, all right. So I have the Dolphins as 7 because I believe they can beat the Chiefs this week. Would I bet on them beating the Chiefs? No, but I think they have a chance. And then honestly, I know we just saw what happened week 18 and we saw what happened. Hold on, they wouldn't play them. I bet. Okay. I was thinking originally that they could potentially play Buffalo, but that would have to require a Steelers win, so that's not happening. I don't know. I think I just feel like if they're, it would probably come down to health, but I feel like they could play Baltimore just as well, if not better than Cleveland in the event that they can put points up. Now I understand that that's been tough for them to do against the better teams this year.
And Baltimore
Especially
defense
since
is the
I don't
best
know who
defense.
they've been the most physical team this year. But I just think I don't know. I just feel like the Dolphins offensively, I trust them a little bit more than Cleveland. And even though Cleveland's defense is so much more superior than say the Dolphins, I think against a team like Baltimore, you have to you have to put up points in order to beat them. I don't think it's a situation where you're gonna have like a rock fight and try to out physical them in order to win. So theoretically, I think that Miami would potentially fare better if they can turn that game into a shootout, which, as Christian has articulated, would be very difficult considering the lack of commitment to the run and then obviously the injuries that you're dealing with.
So I see. I mean, because they've had like one of the best offenses in football all year, but so I can see the trust in the offense itself, right? But I think that's more trust in Mike McDaniel than it is Tua. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
and my argument would be, come playoff time, Mike McDaniel can't step on that field for him. And a lot of the stuff that Mike McDaniel is able to scheme up, of course, he calls good plays. Only thing with him is, and the Dolphins fans say this a lot, is that he doesn't run the ball. Like McVay runs it, Shanahan runs it, but he leaves the run a little bit more. McDaniel is closer to Shanahan than he is to McVay, and he does it even more. But I just don't think once all these defenses are good for the most part. Defense, if they can understand who that first look is on every play and they take it away, that is really when Tua struggles. So McDaniel is going to have to scheme up something crazy.
Yeah.
Well, not something crazy, but he's just going to have to scheme up a game where he can take the ball out of Tua's hands in a way where it's not forced on him to make the decisions on the field. Like, give him his first read, but I don't know if McDaniel is actually going to stick with the run the way he probably needs to. That's probably why I want to have the Dolphins higher than not. Because, I mean, I have the Chiefs at 7. Like you said, you can see them beating the Chiefs. I can see it a world where they beat the Chiefs as well. But we were talking about momentum. I don't know if that win against the Chiefs would necessarily give the Dolphins the type of momentum that it would give for other teams. So because the Chiefs have been mediocre most of the season. And the Dolphins, the offense, I mean, they beat the Chiefs and they go up against a better team. I don't know if they're really carrying much momentum. Winning against the Chiefs is probably the Chiefs weren't playing their best football on offense.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much momentum are you really taking from a game where your opponent just wasn't playing up to their standard, you know? So I don't know. But I'm just not a big Dolphins guy. I'm not a believer in the quarterback. So that's probably all it is. Maybe I'm just biased.
No, I
No,
agree
I'm
with
with
you
you.
there,
Okay.
CT, because obviously the playoffs, like you said before, it's less about the play calls and more about, as they say, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jims and Joes. So at that point, your best players have to be able to make plays. And obviously,
But
go ahead.
I was going to say, McDaniel called a great game last year when they went up against Buffalo. He just did not have the quarterback to get it done. He called a great game, though. They was right there with Buffalo up until
Yeah.
the last quarter for the most part, with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, and I think he threw a couple picks.
Yeah.
So he's showing that he can call a great playoff game. So Tua can play the game that McDaniel is calling, then they probably stand a better chance that I'm giving them. But yeah.
No, I agree, but it would definitely
Right.
have to be a situation where, especially against Baltimore, you have to find a way to get those secondary guys involved in the passing game because I'm sure they'll be bracketing Tyreek on every play. So
Bringing up Baltimore every time. It's a bad example. Bad
I mean, that's who
example.
they would have to go against in the next round, though.
No, they're
If
not
they
though. They will.
Chiefs. So that's why,
No.
even if they get past the Chiefs, I do not see them having a single chance against the Ravens because we saw it already. And I don't know what they can take from that game to say that this is what we did wrong. No, they just got dominated on every aspect of the field. Offense, defense, special teams, they were getting killed. So it's on McDaniel to call a different game a better game, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. So that was number, I believe that was 7. Brian had Dolphins at 7. I had the Browns. My reason to have the Browns higher than a lot of different, higher than you, Brian, and where you had the Matt Christian, is I don't trust the Dolphins. I trust the Browns more than I trust the Dolphins. Sure, because I like to lean heavy on defense when the offense when it comes to the playoffs. Defense really matters. The only thing is that the Browns, I don't know if you can fully trust Flacco still, even though Flacco has been balling the last few weeks. Once again, Joe Flacco has been out the league for a minute. He had been in playoffs in a long time. I'm not the league for maybe out the league for about like the first 10, 11 games of the season. But like I just feel like the Browns though, their defense is really, 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 really good. They're so good. And it's kind of hard for a lot of these different teams. I feel like the only teams that can kind of compete with the Browns when it comes to scoring on them are the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens, which I have above them. Everybody else, I don't think in the AFC or NFC could really touch the Browns outside the 49ers and maybe the Cowboys. Um, but in terms of trying to score in them, yeah, now I fit on them. That's just me personally. But however, though, first time we see this team number 7, the Chiefs. Christian and JG had them. At 7. Sorry, slide past Demarco. He had the Dolphins at 7 as well, as Christian mentioned. But the Chiefs, a new team we haven't talked about yet. So Christian, right, why you got the Chiefs at 7, which is kind of the lowest ranking we have on the board.
This hurts me, man, because I'm a Chiefs guy, but they haven't looked right all year, and Kelsey is not going to say washed. I'm not going to say it, but he's looked a bit old.
Step behind.
That
Yeah,
reminds me of the Kanye
he's
video. I'm
taking a
sorry.
step back. But I don't really see where they're getting the receiver production from. Like last year, at least they had Juju playing decent football. This year, I don't know where it's coming from, man. Rasheed Rice, other than Rasheed Rice, of course.
Rice been doing this
But
thing,
that's a young receiver who, if I'm a defense, I'm focusing entirely on him because last year you had Juju and you still had Kelsey playing at an All-Pro level. These past few weeks, Kelsey has just been a shell of himself. And so if he's like, I don't know if he's hurt or if there's something going on, but if he's not beating you, or maybe defenses are ultra focused on him and letting Rasheed get his game off, but they may just have to focus on those two. Pacheco's been banged up a little bit. He was back past 2 weeks though, so I think he'll be ready to go. I think the Dolphins is a good matchup for them, just because they can. I think they'll probably be able to run the ball well against them. Patrick will probably have a decent amount of time considering the Dolphins' edge rushers are out. But other than that, I don't think this is the year where the Chiefs probably aren't a favorite after this first week against anybody they play. Because they're the 3 seed. They would play the Bills. I don't know if I like that matchup for them unless Josh Allen just does some JB type stuff out there. Um, no, man. But no, the Chiefs, it's just been disappointing to see. The defense is the offense has been So that's 7 is kind of where, and they're literally at 7 just because of their pedigree in the past and Patrick Mahomes. Because if we're basing off the last half of the season, they'd probably be closer to like 11, 12.
Yeah. To go off of that, I had the Chiefs at 6. One spot above us. So it's virtually the same thing. But think about the Chiefs. I have them the lowest out of the teams I could potentially win the Super Bowl or have a better chance to have the Super Bowl. I feel like they're the least likely to. Outside the top 6 teams. I feel like they have a chance for it because of Mahomes. And the main difference between last year and this year is one, Juju's playing at least decent. Travis Kelce's are playing on All-Pro level, but also their defense was really good last year. Going to the playoffs. But this year, like Christian mentioned, the defense has been kind of mediocre, been okay at best. And it's not really many weapons you can trust. I wish Andy Reid could probably still depend on the run game with Pacheco against the Dolphins, but I don't know how likely that is. But I do have the Chiefs being the Dolphins strictly because Dolphins don't have their pass rushers. They have no pass rushers. Even though they just signed, like I said earlier, Justin Houston. I think given Mahomes time in general, could do a lot for the Chiefs and kind of just help them a lot, especially with Rasheed Rice, who's been balling out regardless of the season as a rookie. And Travis Kelce, even though say they focus on Rasheed Rice, right? Travis Kelce still has the potential to put up an All-Pro game. If that makes sense.
About Noah Gray.
So who?
Noah Gray.
They're not worried about it. Yeah, that's tight end too.
They're not worried about, bro.
He
been pretty good, pretty decent. But
he's been
I think
good.
the thing that's going in the Chiefs' favor is that the Dolphins not having their pass rush, and so the Dolphins have good DBs, but they don't have their pass rush. So in turn, that may do more harm than good because that way you're turning Mahomes into an improviser. Because that way he's able to get out the pocket, gives receivers more time to get open because they're probably not open within the first 2 seconds of the play. So if he gets out that pocket, able to make things happen in that way, it probably plays more into what the Chiefs actually want to do because their drop back passing game just has not been good. The standard drop back and find who's open, nobody's open really.
I just realized.
So
do you think?
Mahomes, Say it
No,
again.
finish.
I
If
have a
Mahomes
question.
is able to turn into an improviser, find people, get getting down the field, that may be what they want to do. Honestly, instead of that regular drop back passing game.
Yeah, I'm intrigued on what the Dolphins going to do defensively. They could send because the capacity of weapons they don't have that many. I feel like the Dolphins can send a lot of different blitzes and different schemes towards the Chiefs. Just try to make sure, try to get Mahomes to get out his hands fast. And with the receivers they got, you can't really trust them. Um, of course, Travis Kelsey's definitely a safety valve, safety blanket, but I'm just intrigued how the Dolphins going to play Mahomes. But moving on, like I said, we are at 6. We had the Chiefs. However, though, Brian and Christian both had the Lions at 6. So Brian, explain like why you have the Lions over teams like the Dolphins, Browns, Eagles.
So this is again going back to the Zilla point. I feel like this is a situation where I feel like I had them in a divisional slash conference championship situation because I feel like no matter what happens, they're gonna face Dallas in that divisional round. So I just like their chances of making the championship a little bit more than say a team like the Rams, even though that's who we were like a team like the Rams or the Eagles as we were talking about before, because I feel like they match up with Dallas a lot better than Philly, and honestly, I think all of us would say that they deserve to win the game, even though the game was taken out of their hands and the refs made a bad call. So I think this is a situation where we know the Lions can match up with Dallas. We know they have the capability of beating Dallas, and I think they can keep it close enough to where Jared Goff doesn't have to. Jared Goff doesn't have to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns for you to win the game. So unlike kind of like Miami, where you're asking Tua to have to do that, with Detroit, you're balanced enough to where you can keep it close, and your defense is good enough to contain Dallas. So for me, their ceiling would be conference championship, and I could see them beating Dallas. So that's why I would have them over Philly or Saint not St. Louis or Los Angeles or a team like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
Um.
mean, as much as I talk about the Rams, I got the Lions at 6, and that's one spot behind the Rams. I like both these teams. So, I mean, if you had to force me to pick a team, I would pick the Rams over the Lions just because, like I said, the coaching, and I think they have the best player on the field, and Aaron Donald, and he has the potential to wreck any game he's in. But the Lions are a well coached team as well, very aggressive team. Playoff environment, they may go for every fourth down on that field past the 50. I wouldn't be surprised. But Dan Campbell, as long as Jared Goff protects the football, they have a
Yep.
chance in any game that they're in. The
Yes.
running game, those two running backs are dynamic. David Montgomery has been decent all year. Jameer Gibbs has been looking like worth the pick for the most part. As long as he can get past this first 5 years of the contract. Um, the receiving game, Amara Jameson has done some things recently. And then the big thing is Laporta's injury. I don't
Yeah,
know if he's playing. I've seen reports that I think Dan Campbell said they're looking at days instead of weeks, so that's a good thing. Because I would have liked to see them pick up like a veteran tight end if they could have like a Zach Ertz, but apparently Laporta hasn't been ruled out. So if he has a chance to go, I like their chances, but I didn't like the fact that he was in that Week 18 matchup and ended up getting hurt. But that's Dan Campbell. That's his strategy as a coach. So that's the type of stuff he'll do. Can't knock it because it's worked for them over the past couple of years. So this is a well coached team, good defense, good offense, and they're aggressive. I like the aggressive mindset that Dan Campbell has. They went into Dallas, basically beat them without the win because of, like Brian said, the bad call. So, I mean, I got them right there with the Rams, and the way I was talking about the Rams, I kind of feel similar with the Lions, except just to a slightly lesser degree.
Yeah. I have the Lions a couple spots higher, above the Chiefs and the Bills at 4. I have the Bills at 5, Lions at 4. I have the Lions so high because of the point that CT just made. If Jared Goff could protect the ball, they have a chance with any other team in the playoffs, and that's saying a lot. Dan Campbell was a great coach, even though he has a couple bonehead moves, especially getting in that Dallas game where they got cheated out of. Going for 2 from the 7-yard line, we could just tie it up, go overtime. But hey, it happens. But I just think the Lions, their offense is that good. They have a lot of weapons. Jared Goff, it can have a really, really great game. And they show me that against the Cowboys. Even though it was looking scary early in the game, the Lions kind of persevered and kind of showed they could battle through adversity regardless. So I think the Lions, in my opinion, one of my top 5 teams that have a chance to win the Super Bowl as well. But who else? I think DeMarco had the Chiefs as well at 6. At 5, Christian, you got the Rams. Me and Brian had the Bills. DeMarco and JG, they both had the Lions, who we just kind of talked about a split second ago. But the Bills.
I want to say something before we move forward.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, hear you guys say this repeatedly over and over again. That was redundant. I don't know why I said it like that. But the notion in which you guys are using to kind of rank your team, I think Brian's the one who mainly did it. Christian, you said that JG probably followed the same suit in which you're basing the rankings of the team based off who they're playing and where they may end up on the season. Now, I agree. I'm not saying that the end result, I agree with the end results you guys are coming to, but the thought process is where I'm getting I don't want to say lost, but I'm disagreeing with to an extent because I feel as though if we were to say our power rankings were based off of where we think every team would end up at the end of the playoffs, I can agree with that thought process. But based off where we're going, where they ended off a regular season, I feel like it's kind of I don't understand how using that is fair. And I think that's what brought Christian's point about, or Caleb said it initially, if you switch the teams around, if let's say he said the Eagles and the Steelers play each other instead of someone that's the Buccaneers played them, try to look at that perspective. But I see Christian kind of leans towards that. He mentioned that further along in the rankings, the higher we went, he said he kind of thought that same way, in which he didn't think certain teams get to certain parts of the playoffs. I was like, well, that's not really what the question was, unless it was based off where we think they would end up. I thought it was based off where they are now.
Well, I mean,
It's
go ahead, Caleb.
I can go. It's your own criteria, right? Like for me, I just did it based on how teams are playing come off the end of the season. At the same time, potentially, all right, what's their ceiling? Where can you get to? And I feel like are they able to kind of get to that point? Like I feel like they actually can't get to that point in the next couple of weeks. But that was me personally. Once again, I'm same thing with you. I don't agree with doing it with matchups. I get it why you would do that because that's what they plan. That's reality. But at the same time, it's like circumstances kind of can change regardless. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that doesn't make a team better than another team because of that. But I'm gonna let Brian kind of get his off his point of view.
So I will agree that obviously basing off like criteria matchups does make it a more flawed list than say like Christians who probably did it more based on the talent level of the teams. So yeah, that makes sense and obviously makes it pretty flawed. I tried to balance it, which is why like when I brought up like the Browns for example, like their defense, I know their defense is championship caliber, but I have questions about their offenses a little bit. So that may be. So sometimes it was partially tiebreakers on like roster construction and things of that nature, but for the most part, I wanted to go ceiling based because it's like, all right, if I feel like this team is closer to the Super Bowl than this team, then I feel like there's enough justification between the roster they have and the matchups that they would have to face. You put those together, and then that would be the situation. Now, again, having like the ceiling as like my main criteria probably makes the list a lot more flawed because then again, you are doing the hypothetical matchups instead of kind of going based off what the team looks like. But yeah, I think that's just kind of how I tried to look at it.
Even still, I don't want to say that your list is flawed because when I started, what I said was that I agree with the end result of your list. Like it's not outrageous anything you said. I think our lists are fairly similar amongst all of us actually. But one thing kind of brings to my mind, in which like I even agree with the ceiling part. I agree with that also. But in the NBA terms of this way I'm trying to put it together now, but in terms of NBA, that's looking I think the Bucks are second right now, and the Celtics are first. So let's say given the playoffs, where they play first place fourth, second place third. Let's just say hypothetically, the Bucks and the Celtics had to play against each other in the playoffs, right? Those are both fine. Well, we'll just say Eastern Conference Finals teams as of now, right? But the way that you guys were kind of proposing the thought process would be, okay, if they can't get past the Celtics or they can't get past the Bucks, either way in that scenario, then they're not really an Eastern Conference Finals team. I feel like that's where the line kind of gets a little iffy. It's like I said, ceiling wise, it's there, so I still agree with that. But
Okay.
Mhm.
like I said, I didn't want to. I noticed it a couple times. I saw the trend kind of picking up, so I just want to talk about it. But I don't want to say
So
this is flawed.
No,
I
Go ahead,
think
Shooting,
I
go
think the thing is, and I think in defense of Brian, like looking at it with matchups, if the primary goal is to win the Super Bowl, and I think this is where football and basketball differ, because basketball you have that 7 game series where the best team generally wins out for the most part. Football,
Mhm.
any given Sunday, you never know who could win. If the primary goal is to win that Super Bowl, matchup to matchup, it changes. Like if Brian views a team as having the chance to get to the conference championship, but he doesn't like another team's matchup in that divisional round, like hypothetically, say Brian picks the Rams to win in this week, but he thinks they're going to get slaughtered by the 49ers. He can't put
Mhm.
them that high because in comparison to a team like, say he had the Eagles winning hypothetically, but he thinks the Eagles
Mhm.
have a better chance of beating the Cowboys. Both these two teams made it to the divisional round, but he thinks that the Rams have no chance of making the conference championship, not because the Rams are simply worse than the Eagles, but because the Rams have a much more different and more difficult matchup than the Eagles do. This
Mhm.
hypothetical,
Right.
I don't remember exactly where Brian had these teams on his list.
No, you're right
But
there.
if the
You're right
goal
there.
is
Yeah.
the Super Bowl, whichever team is closest to that Super Bowl, because like we said, all it takes is for a team to get hot. The Eagles get hot and they're in that conference championship, even if you don't like the matchup against the 49ers, if they get hot, we could simply be wrong and they beat the 49ers and they're in the Super Bowl, you know? So I think doing it like that, like I didn't do my list like that
Mhm.
the entire time. My list is kind of like a combination because there's certain
Right.
teams who I viewed as not having a single chance in the world to make it past like the divisional round. So it's like teams like the Steelers, Buccaneers, Packers, Texans. That's like a group for my list.
Mhm.
So like that's a group of 4 teams who and kind of the Eagles, but Eagles and Dolphins are kind of their own thing. But that's like a group of teams who I don't see who maybe even if they get lucky this week, I don't think they stand a chance of winning in the next week, no matter how much momentum they have going into that next week. So that's a group. Then I have like the Eagles, the Dolphins, Browns, Chiefs are kind of in that group as well, where teams who are kind of struggling or who aren't really expected to do too much. The Browns are kind of different because they're already a good defense with just a questionable offense, you could say. But these are teams who you don't know what you're necessarily going to get week to week. So it's hard to rank them any higher than like 5 at this point. And you got the Lions and Rams. Whoever wins that matchup, I think could have a chance to go as far as they can because I like the Lions matchup against the Cowboys and I like the Rams matchup against the 49ers because it's not a bracket in football. So it's like it's based off. So
Right.
whoever's the lowest seed
Yeah, it
gets
reseeds.
the
It reseeds.
highest seed next week. So the Rams and
Mhm.
Lions play each other, but if they win, if either team wins, they wouldn't both play the 49ers, hypothetically. The Lions would go play the Cowboys, but the Rams would play the 49ers if they win. So I like both of
Right.
those matchups for both of those teams in this hypothetical. So that's why I could see both of those teams getting to the conference championship. And then you got the Cowboys, Bills, 49ers, Ravens. I think those are my 4 best teams in the league. Those are the 4 teams that I could see in the conference championship at this point today. And those are 4 teams I could definitely see in the Super Bowl. So I think that's just how I group my list. I think it's different
Yeah.
though, because different football and basketball because it's not a bracket. So
Mhm.
each matchup could change the whole whoever plays who. So like if a team wins, you can't put them in a certain spot unless they're the 7th seed because 7th seed automatically would go play the 1st seed. Stuff like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I would understand that thought process, but you kind of said it right there in the beginning of your statement, which you look at about who's winning the Super Bowl, but that wasn't a question about who's going to win the Super Bowl or who's going to get to the Super Bowl. If that was a question, the matchup definitely would be at the foremost of everybody's mind. But in terms of asking what team is the best, 1, 2, 3, as they are, then that's where I see a difference in terms of the outlook the outlook in saying what team could get past who or what team can have a higher ceiling. So
I mean,
like I
but
said, it depends on how you look at it.
when you do like NBA power rankings, aren't you ranking the team that you would say is most likely to have the most success? Who would be at one?
I
So that's
think
what
ranking
I
the best
mean.
team
I think. I
rather
mean, I'm
than who
not
they're
gonna say the
going
Ravens are
against.
my Super Bowl favorite, but I think they're the best team in the NFL. It's so hard in football because it's literally
Mhm.
one game at a time.
Yeah.
So it's like even though we all have the Ravens at one, it's so
Mhm.
difficult to predict who will be in the Super Bowl week to week.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you've had some years in the NBA where you know what the finals matchup is. We knew Cavs Warriors was the
that's true.
matchup for like 3 years in a row. Like
That's true.
it didn't matter who they were playing in the playoffs. It didn't matter what matchup would get thrown their way. We knew what teams were going to end up in the finals just because those were the two best teams. There was a clear two
Mhm.
best teams in the league this year, the Ravens and the 49ers, and we still don't know if that's the matchup we're going to get in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
it's like we can power rank it. We can have our Super Bowl favorite, but any given Sunday. That's what we say. Any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to move on from that, I'm gonna just have everybody list out their top five. I'm opposite to go here first. So at five, I got the Bills. I Bills. I feel like Josh Allen. He's literally a boomer bust type of player. Even though the last few games have not been the best, they won the games. They won all five in a row. Yeah, but the games themselves haven't been the best games. They in close games with teams that are not even in the playoffs, or just kind of really worse than when it comes to talent wise. Before we add the Lions, who we talked about already. Three, I got the Cowboys. Two 49ers, and one, I got the Ravens. So Brian, Christian, Demarco, one of y'all could go ahead.
I'll do my five. So like Caleb had the Bills at five. I think them getting that 2 seed was huge, because they at least have two games at home, going into the playoffs. Also, Josh Allen is still a talent, and he's a guy that can carry you, if necessary. Now I have the Chiefs at four, which is a lot higher than most of the people on the list. For three reasons, honestly. One, I believe their defense is good, is at least good enough. I won't say championship caliber, only because I feel like a team like the Browns deserves that. But the Chiefs defense has been very good, and you could argue great. So I feel like they're good. They're great enough to where they can keep their team in games, even if the offense is struggling for sure. Number two, obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who some of us believe is still the best quarterback in the league. It depends on how you feel about how everybody's played this year. But he's always had in the playoffs. He's always had a feel had a he's always been able to make timely plays, whether it's with his arm or whether it's with his ability to run with the football. So that's number two. So I can never count it for that reason. And number three, I think the Chiefs, because they understand how to win. I feel like if when they match up against Buffalo, they just have a psychological advantage, especially in the playoffs. And last year around this time, we saw Cincinnati walk into Buffalo and basically dominate both sides of the football. So I could see Kansas City Kansas City having a real good game against Miami this coming week. The offense kind of finding something, whether it's Pacheco on the ground or another receiver emerging. Because I think that, as you guys said before, I think defense is going to start trying to key in on Rashee Rice as well as Travis Kelsey, and I think we're gonna see a lot more, maybe like cover one type schemes where everybody's playing press man and saying you guys gotta try to beat us over the top, because outside of MVS, I don't think there's a real deep threat. Not even Rasheed, because Rasheed's more of a guy that's catching the ball at the line of scrimmage. Even though he had a nice play in the last against Vegas, I believe week 17. But they're more of an intermediate type team than a deep threat team ever since Tyreek has been gone. So I think I don't think we'll see a whole lot of like too high safety coverages come playoff time for them. But that's number 4. Number 3, I had Dallas. Outside of obviously the top 2 teams as we'll get to, I think Dallas is right there from a talent perspective. And I think going into the season, they were right there with the Eagles and the Eagles and the 49ers in the NFC is like is these three teams, and then it's everybody else, even including the Lions and people like that. So I think Dallas is still right there. Obviously, they have an MVP caliber quarterback in Dak Prescott, who's been playing very well this year. We know what CeeDee Lamb has done, and then you have a game record who can arguably be the best player on both sides of the um on between both teams in any playoff game in Micah Parsons. So they have the key players in they have the players in key positions in order to be a potential Super Bowl contender. Number two, we have the 49ers. Obviously, for the same reasons that we just said about Dallas, but we also understand that San Francisco. We've already seen San Francisco beat Dallas, and we've seen them beat Philly this year. So they almost separated themselves from the pack in the NFC, especially when Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel have been healthy this year. And then number one, obviously we have the Baltimore Ravens, who have the best record in the NFL, and we saw them go to San Francisco and dominate the game, which I believe is a lot more impressive than even if they were to have been at home and beat San Fran, because they went on the road and they make Brock Purdy look human and they did what they did. I feel like that shows that they should be the number one team for sure, and they have the MVP front runner in Lamar Jackson. So I believe that's how my top five shook out.
And I want to mention something about the top two teams in general. I feel like there's a consensus all around the league. Well, with us, of course, that these are the best two teams strictly because they've shown it this season. They went against multiple teams on this list, that's in the playoffs right now. Either dominated them or beat them in a convincing fashion. And yeah, my bad. Go ahead, Demarco. I'm happy you bring your top five off real quick.
Yeah, so at 5, I have the Detroit Lions. I think most of my thinking is when it comes to the top 5 is based off trust for the playoffs. The Lions haven't won a playoff game, like Nate said, 30 years. So just not having that full experience puts them the last spot for me when it comes to the top 5. After that, it's the Cowboys at 4. Again, as Christian said, every year the Cowboys do something to find a way to lose a game. Very similar to the Commanders, actually, but at least they in the playoffs. They've been playing very well recently, though. That's why they got the hound list from me. So hopefully they can keep it up. But I don't know if they'll be able to compare to what the Bills have at number 3. Josh Allen, all the, you know what I'm saying, Jock talk and JB talk, you know what I'm saying, do the JB, of course. He can throw that ball. Has great arm talent. The talents around him when it comes to James Cook, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Kincaid. I believe in them to be better than the Cowboys, at least in the playoffs, just from what I've seen. And then nothing really needs to be said about the Ravens and 49ers. Everything we've already seen. And Kato just mentioned as well. So that's my top 5.
Go run up top
All right,
5 fast.
The Bengals 5 is at 5. Got my Rams. I said all I could about them. Got the Cowboys at 4. This was a switch I made right before we recorded. I got the Cowboys at 4, the Bills at 3. Simply because if I was to look at it as who I think is more likely to be in that big dance, I think the Cowboys have a much better chance. I mean, not the Cowboys. The Bills have a much better chance than the Cowboys do. Two similar situations with those teams, where if the playoffs don't go well for these teams, this may be the last iteration of some sort, whether it's with the coaching or some of the bigger name players on those teams. The Bills more so than the Cowboys, I feel like. So I have the Bills at 3. I don't know. I think if they can put it together, I think if Josh Allen can play smart football, they'll be a pretty difficult team to beat. Then I got the 49ers at 2. I don't know what to say. They've been one of the best. They were the best team in football until they played the Ravens. For the most part, I think everybody viewed them as the best team in football until they played the Ravens. They were the favorites, and the Ravens dog walked them. So I got the Ravens at 1. They've been the most consistent over the last 2 months of the season. I think that's what's very important going into the playoffs. This last half of the season, it's important to not overrate like the first 10 weeks, especially with this new 18-week season, 17 games. First 10 weeks, important in its own right because it can get a lot of teams to the playoffs, like we've seen with the Eagles. But these last 7 games, 6 games, where you really start to see these teams and how they look in the playoffs with whether they have injuries, um, different types of things they do differently from the first half of the season. So stuff like that, and I think the Ravens have been the most consistent over the last 2 months of the season. So that's why I would have them at number 1. Did the Ravens play the Bills this year?
We did not. We did not play them this year.
I'd like to see it.
Nah, yeah, that's something I'm excited for. If we do play the Bills, I'm very confident in my team because how Josh Allen plays and how our team takes advantage of turnovers. But yeah, those are our playoff team rankings for the 2024 NFL playoffs, the 2023 season playoffs. Anybody got anything else to say about the teams, things like that, or?
Get your parlays ready. We got a lot of betting. Yes.
Okay.
How much them tickets cost again, Caleb, for the Baltimore?
At least they cost at least $300 minimum.
Give me one night.
You said what?
One night. Give me one night. I'm gonna get that money. So everybody going. I'm paying for all y'all tickets, man. I got the best one. Got the best parlay. Tua under on 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, you're not getting. Is under?
Under. Yep.
No, you might cash out on that.
All right, well, nothing else needs to be said. There's been another edition of the What's the Play podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tell a friend, tell your mom, dad, sister, brother, auntie, uncle, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. Tell them to like, share, and subscribe to What's the Play Productions. We got more content coming for you guys. Happy New Year to you all. And be sure to stay tuned for the next play.
Happy birthday, Nate. Happy birthday, Nate.
Happy birthday, what I need.